Welcome to the Church of Perpetual Life. My name is Ilan and I am your officiator here at Perpetual Life, and we're coming to you live from South Florida as well as Israel. We'd like to welcome to Zoom our distinguished guest speaker today, Ilia Stambler, and he has prepared a wonderful presentation on promoting longevity research and advocacy internationally. Ilia Stambler, a PhD, is the chairman and chief science officer of Vetek, Seniority Association, the movement for longevity and quality of life, Israel, and a researcher at the Department of Science, Technology, and Society, Ilan University, Israel. His research has focused on the historical and social implications of aging and life extension research, and mathematical modeling of aging and aging-related diseases. He is actively involved in advocacy for aging and longevity research, serving as an executive committee member of the International Society on Aging and Disease and International Longevity Alliance, trustee and director of the Biogerontology Research Foundation, a fellow and policy director at the Global Health Span Policy Institute. He has published over 60 academic journal articles and book chapters and has authored 2 books on aging and longevity. He was an active player in the campaign for the inclusion of aging into the 2017 WHO work program and for establishing the section on research, development, and education for healthy longevity in the Israel National Masterplan on aging in 2019. Please help me welcome Ilia Stambler with his presentation, Promoting Longevity Research and Advocacy Internationally. Ilia.
So thank you very much. I'm delighted to present to this congregation that was founded by people that I respect very much, Bill Falloon and Sol Kent. I have Sol Kent's book here, on my shelf. You can see it. Yeah. So also was one of my inspirations when writing my own books, The History of Life Extensionism in the 20th Century. I don't know, once again, if you can see it well. And the second book, Longevity Promotion, Multidisciplinary Perspectives. So that's what I'm going to talk about. Longevity promotion or promotion of longevity research and advocacy. That's what we do. When we talk about promoting longevity or longevity research and advocacy, we talk basically about 3 main aspects. We talk about feasibility. Is extending longevity possible? If it is possible, whether it is desirable, do we want it? And if it is possible and desirable, then the question is, what do we actually do to get it? That's, I believe, is the logical buildup of longevity advocacy. First of all, what is our main idea? Our main idea is, first of all, that we want to extend life, healthy life, but life generally. That's not obvious to many people. Many people are somehow averse to this idea of life extension, but we admit that we do want to live longer, live healthier. And for that purpose, we want to intervene into the process that kills most of the people, brings most disability and death, and that is the aging process itself. Also pretty obvious to us, but not obvious to the rest of the world, who still don't consider aging as a medical target. But we understand that with aging, all diseases increase. And if we are really serious about extending our life, about prevention of age-related diseases, we need to intervene into aging. And of course, this idea becomes ever more relevant as the global population aging. That's what we promote. This idea should have become obvious to everybody in the time of COVID, when we see that older people are the most vulnerable to COVID. Why? Simply because their immune system is aging. Once again, a very trivial idea for this audience, but not trivial for the world. Most of the world still saw aging as somehow separate from COVID. The risk factors were separated from the virus. but we did advocate for this connection. We organized international conferences and published research papers and position papers, and went to the press and went to the government with this idea that if we really want to fight COVID, we also need to fight aging itself, the degeneration of aging. I would say this outreach wasn't very successful. As I mentioned, still most people saw the issue separately, but now hopefully the COVID is subsiding or has subsided, so we can go back to the direct advocacy for anti-aging, for prevention of age-related diseases by intervention into aging. And I would argue that because we didn't focus on aging enough in this period, we also didn't cope with COVID too well. We see that the global life expectancy decline in the years 2020 and 2021 by almost 2 years. That's WHO data. You don't hear about it often, but actually life expectancy declined globally first time since the Second World War. And we should all sound the alarm. We should all, be up in arms. But we are not. This is somehow kept in silence, this appalling fact. But at least as life extension advocates, we need to draw attention to the fact that we need to get back to increasing life expectancy, at least as a baseline, and then resume our progress. Still, we're optimistic as life extension advocates, as the life extension researchers. We're optimistic, even though life expectancy declined in the past 2 years. It has been generally increasing for the past 150 years. So we see that the life extension is possible, increasing life expectancy is possible. There is nothing in nature that prevents the possibility of life extension. We see that in nature there are animals that do not age. We can even call them immortal. Which means that basically there's no law in nature that prevents the possibility of indefinite life extension. We see many proofs of feasibility in animal studies. In higher animals like mice, we can extend life by 30% by simple genetic manipulation. In simpler organisms like C. elegans, we can extend life by tenfold. So this once again shows that the aging process is pliable, it is plastic, so we can intervene into aging and extend life. It is just our goal to bring those experiments to humans. And we see that technologies are generally developing, including medical technologies. Every day you hear about breakthroughs in medical technologies. Still, these technologies somehow don't combine yet to extend our life significantly, but there are proofs of feasibility. And even without medical science, we see that humanity generally evolves toward longevity. Several decades were added to the human lifespan without any medical technology, just simply by evolution, by improving our brain, improving our regulatory capacity. So all these are sources of hope that we can really achieve life extension, and even in our lifetime. Another source of hope is that actually the scientific pursuit of life extension is quite young. About 120 years ago, the Russian-French scientist Elie Mechnikov proposed the very idea of gerontology, scientific study of aging, proposed the role of immune system in aging process. So that was the beginning of the scientific study of gerontology. And just in 120 years, we went a very long way. If in Mechnikov's time we didn't even know, humanity didn't know that immune system played any role in aging, or even played any role at all in defense of disease. Now we can program the immune system to respond to specific pathogens. So that's pretty encouraging. So the hope is that in the next 120 years, we'll have at least the same amount or even more progress. Still, there is a very long way to go. We don't know much still. If somebody offers you a ready-to-made pill or remedy to defeat aging, to extend life, it's probably a charlatan and probably a quack. We still don't have anything that is proven to extend longevity generally, or health longevity, for the simple reason that it would require several decades to verify. We didn't have the time yet. So there are many theories of aging. Some say 300, but we may count 3,000 because everything changes with age. So everything can be a factor of aging. So still there is a huge problem to solve, but this does mean that this problem cannot be solved, that we shouldn't pursue this goal of fighting aging and extended life. Right now, the most prevalent idea in life extension is there are several main aging processes. For example, strategies for engineered negligible senescence, we have 7 main aging processes, or the pillars of aging classification system of the NIH Neuroscience Interest Group also have 7 main processes of aging. And for every such aging process, we have proofs of feasibility to intervene. I will not go into detail. I don't have too much time and a lot of material to cover. But for every major aging process, there are ways to intervene that were shown to increase the lifespan and health span of animal models. And there are already some emerging human trials that are also promising. So it is our goal as longevity activists, as advocates, to move those trials to the clinic as fast as possible with as much as possible efficacy and safety. Another famous classification system is the hallmarks of aging. There used to be 9 hallmarks of aging. That's the Lopez-Otten classification system. Now they posited there are 12 hallmarks of aging, but as you said, it could be 122 hallmarks because everything changes with age. And depending on our focus, we can select various factors of aging. And obviously, we need to consider all the aging processes together in synergy, in combination. There may be other classification system like detoxification versus supplementation and other classification systems for the connection of aging processes and age-related diseases. There is nothing ontological about those hallmarks or pillars. We can think of other classification systems, but the main idea remains that yes, there are certain established processes of aging and certain means to intervene into those processes, showing the feasibility. Another crucial problem is, of course, to integrate the various processes, as was suggested by Alex Comfort, one of the pillars of aging research back in the 60s, in the 1960s. You cannot rejuvenate one element of a system by neglecting all the other elements, like you cannot replace an element in a radio, in an old radio, but blow up all the circuits. You have to think about the system as a whole, an integration and balance. That's obviously a huge problem that still needs to be addressed. But once again, we don't give up before the difficulties. We just realize that there are difficulties in the process of fighting aging. Another difficulty is that it's even very basic, is that we simply don't know, we don't agree how we measure aging. Obviously, we cannot treat something that you cannot measure. Ruby mentioned some panel of biomarkers of aging that can be analyzed, but of course there can be an unlimited number of such panels, and pretty much every researcher, every physician has a panel of biomarkers of his or her own. There is no consensus, no agreement. The huge variety of biomarkers. Obviously, once again, everything changes with age. Everything can be a biomarker of aging. So we still need to come to some kind of conclusion or agreement. What is it that you want to measure when you want to test the efficacy of anti-aging treatments? Also huge work for the future. Still, the main idea remains that by intervention to aging, we can prevent multiple age-related diseases, not just one disease or one symptom, but multiple age-related diseases, so-called age-related multimorbidity. Why? Simply because aging is the main risk factor or the main underlying cause of all those conditions. And that's the idea of anti-aging advocacy, simply to recognize aging as something that can be treated. And in this way, we can prevent multiple age-related disease Also, it is obvious in this community, it's not obvious to the world. So a lot of advocacy has taken place in the past 2 decades. I'm very proud to have been involved in a lot of this advocacy to convince people generally, and also decision makers and regulators, that aging is something that can be treated, that can be addressed as a medical condition. And now I'm happy to report that as of the last year, as of 2022, aging is recognized as a medical condition by the International Classification of Diseases, the ICD-11 system, not as a disease per se, but as 2 types of categories, 2 types of code. First of all, as an aging-associated decline in intrinsic capacity, which has many synonyms, including aging itself and frailty. So basically, you can address aging as a set of general symptoms or a syndrome. And the second code is aging-related code, basically showing the influence of aging in emergence of pretty much every disease. So with these 2 codes, we can already address aging as a medical condition. And I'm very happy and proud to say that also the organizations that I represent, like International Longevity Alliance and Biogerontology Research Foundation, were instrumental in introducing those codes into the ICD-11 system. Not just me, many people were involved, but I'm very happy to be some small part of this advocacy process. But once again, this is just the first step in a long process. The next steps will be to develop evaluation criteria for aging. What is it that we want to measure? How do we want to diagnose aging? Not just to predict aging health trajectory for preventive medicine, but also to test the effectiveness of anti-aging and health span improving treatments. From the one side, to eliminate snake oil treatments that don't have evidential basis. On the other hand, to promote the treatments that do have evidential basis based on evaluation criteria. So that's also the discussion we want to promote. Published a lot of papers, also in the Lancet Health and Longevity and Aging in Disease, in Frontiers in Genetics, that had 120,000 views. We want to raise this discussion. What do we want to measure when we treat aging? Very important. So every little bit of discussion counts. Also, our research, I'm mostly an activist, but I'm also involved in research with my colleague David Bloch. We also try to develop metrics of aging, and for testing the effectiveness of anti-aging treatments using information theoretical methods, published quite a lot of papers. I will not go into this. That's just our contribution, our voice in this massive chorus and this massive discussion that we want to stimulate, how to measure aging, how to measure the effectiveness of anti-aging treatments. Not a simple question. And I believe that the most effective way to establish this evaluation criteria is just by doing anti-aging tests. We have had a lot of evidence in animal models. Yes, aging can be influenced. Yes, lifespan can be extended, but we do really need to get to people, of course, with as much safety and efficacy as possible. But we do need to do more experiments on people to get to actual evidence-based treatments. These are some of the examples of the studies I was involved in the last years, including with mesenchymal stem cells, also well-known anti-aging treatment. Once again, there's just one voice in a massive discussion that we want to stimulate. And of course, we cannot forget the well-known lifestyle interventions like moderated balanced nutrition and life-affirming attitude and rest and sleep and exercise. All these things are known. They have been known to our grandparents and probably thousands of years. We don't always follow them. We all know them, but we don't always follow them. Also, part of longevity education for health longevity is to convince people to actually adopt more of those lifestyles. But this shouldn't be seen as somehow antagonistic to science, to advanced science, to scientific interventions, but as reinforcing each other working in synergy. And as I'm speaking to this congregation, of course, we could not forget the long-term preservation strategies, of course, cryonics and other preservation strategies. I don't know, preserving connectome or just preserving pieces of our personal information, also very important. The speed that the geoprotectors are being developed, it looks like this insurance is needed more and more. So at least I personally, if earlier I was more focused on developing or advocate for geoprotectors, now I think I should focus more on long-term preservation strategies, at least for myself. But that's also part of the general life extension movement that should not be brushed under the carpet, as some people try to do. So I hope we're all convinced. We were convinced before, but now we're convinced even more that it is possible to extend life, to intervene into aging, to prevent age-related diseases. So this is definitely a feasible concept. Now, if this is feasible, is it actually desirable? In ethics, if we can do something, it doesn't mean that we have to do it. Do we have to do it? And I would argue that yes, we have to do it. It is ethically desirable to extend life, and of course, life extension communities would support this idea, but many people in the world don't. There's still this entrenched aversion to the idea of life extension that we still need to argue with, to educate people. But at least from outside, we're convinced that yes. Life extension is a very ethical pursuit, and actually pretty much all the humanistic philosophy agrees on this, that if we value human life, that we also want to extend life. You can see examples from the Jewish physician Maimonides, who argued for it through Herbert Spencer, through the founder of gerontology, Elie Mechnikov, all agree that if we value human life, then we also need to try to extend it. And also in religions, many people juxtapose religious versus non-religious views. No, actually, this is one point where religious and non-religious thinkers agree that life extension is a value. In every religion, in Taoism, in Judaism, in Christianity, in Islam, as well as atheism, we see that there are undercurrents that support the idea of life extension. So basically, this church, this congregation, the Church of Perpetual Life, actually sanctifies the thing that is common to all religions. Of course, we understand that there are undercurrents in various religions that do not support life extension, that rather, value the other world, and death with dignity and other ideas like that. But we can also find in the religions justifications for life extension. So we should embrace those justifications, become aware of them, spread the word about them. Also, a very important part of advocacy. And life extension is not just something that is for individuals. Many people accuse life extension of egotism, of selfishness. No, we don't want life extension just for ourselves. We also want it for our loved ones and for the entire humanity, because we understand that if people as a species live longer, it will also create safeguards against existential risks. And this was understood by many thinkers, for example, by Bernard Shaw. And back to Methuselah, he argued that if we really want to overcome the threat of war, of extinction, we need to live longer, simply because that would gives us a long-term perspective, more robust, more sustainable view of our future, of our development. And also thinkers like G.B.S. Haldane, one of the founders of modern genetics, also argue that if we want to prevent the threat of nuclear war, we also need to be able to live much longer, including developing means to prevent radiation damage, which is very similar to aging damage. So also as a society, we need to promote those goals of life extension. we see that longevity or life extension correlates pretty much with every value that we have. For example, the Human Development Index composed of three main values: longevity, education, and income. And moreover, these values not just correlate with each other, but also reinforce each other. People with better education have a better chance for longevity and better chance for income, for greater income. And of course, improved income provides more health choices, provides a better chance for longevity and for education. Of course, these values are combined in the Human Development Index, and longevity is an indispensable part of it. And we see that longevity correlates pretty much with every value that we hold dear, with the peacefulness and education, intellectual activity, prosperity, economic success, safety, equality. So if anybody asks why do we want to extend longevity rather than working on some other issues, that's the answer. Because longevity is a great proxy, a great driver for human development generally. If we're able to extend longevity, we will also be able to solve many other problems and improve many other values. Still, not everybody agrees. There are many objections raised. There's huge amount of articles and books written arguing against the idea of life extension, that will bring stagnation and boredom and lack of progress and suffering, and death gives meaning to life. Of course, every life extension advocate knows how to counter those criticisms. We can always argue that stability is necessary for human development, that potential for learning will be increased with human life extension, that suffering is preventable, that life gives the meaning of its own. We don't need death to give a meaning to our lives. So all these are arguments that need to be recognized and addressed when speaking to the opponents or to the general public, because our goal is really to get everybody on our side, on the side of life extension. Still, many people raise the specter, the ghost of overpopulation. It's really a ghost that has never been observed before, never been observed in practice. In every country that increases life expectancy, there is always an increase in the resources, increase in economic productivity and agricultural productivity. So that's really a hypothesis that's never been proven in practice. Still, many people go with it, and argue that we shouldn't extend life because of this problem of overpopulation. And of course, we understand that we have the means to feed the world many times over. It was calculated in the 1960s that we could feed up to 50 billion people with the agricultural technologies available back then. So we should really worry about overpopulation as a result of extending longevity. But still, many people are convinced this will happen. So we need to be able to argue with them to convince them it's not the case. On the other hand, the real problem is if we are not able to fight aging, if we are not able to extend healthy life, then we're really in trouble. Then we can really collapse our healthcare system, our welfare system, simply because of the burden of the aging productive society. And we had a small taste of it during COVID. We see that health problem that mainly affected older people threatened our entire social fabric, our economy, our liberties, everything. And that's just a small taste of what can happen if we aren't able to prevent age-related diseases. So once again, we should sound the alarm and get the decision makers and the public involved. But people still feel some kind of relaxed about it, not so urgent. But we really need to involve people. We really need to involve pretty much everybody. Everybody should understand the importance of aging for global health, for population health, and the feasibility and desirability of intervention. The general public, the pharmaceutical and medical technology industry, health insurance, life insurance, regulators, policymakers, scientists, students, everybody needs to get on board with the anti-aging life extension agenda, because it's in their best interest and in the best interest of everybody. I think we are now fully convinced that anti-aging intervention, healthy life extension are possible, and we are fully convinced that it is also desirable for us as individuals, as a society. Now, what do we do with this understanding? Of course, with other goals, if we think that something is possible and something is desirable, we don't just wait that it will fall from the sky. Some people do, but mostly we don't. We actually actively pursue something that we want and that we think is possible to achieve. And the same way it should be with life extension, with anti-aging. We should actually actively pursue it. We should dedicate resources to it, human resources, material resources. Here I can quote the founder, one of the founders of this organization, Sol Kent. What can readers do to increase their chances of living a long, healthy life? We should have widespread public support for life extension research programs, and it's very true. Without massive life extension research programs, we simply have no way to verify treatments, to have widely available, accessible treatments. The treatments that are offered now can only offer partial improvement. By no way they can guarantee any significant life extension, and that's what we really want. So we really should advocate for a massive life extension research program, but also education program, and that's a task that everybody can be involved in without waiting for the governments to take up on this agenda. Everybody can be involved. Everybody can become a researcher, and not even necessarily as a professional, but also as a lay researcher, as a citizen scientist, to study these fields of neuroscience, adjacent sciences, to join others in discussion groups in formal organizations like associations, for example, the association that I represent, the International Longevity Alliance, or the Vetek Association, the Movement for Longevity and Quality of Life, if you're in Israel. Participate, research, volunteer for research projects, practice healthy life prolonging lifestyle to improve one's chances to actually benefit from life extended technologies when they become available. And of course, also lobby, become involved in public advocacy, pressure the decision makers, because if they don't feel the pressure from below, they simply don't bother. I'm happy to have been involved in quite a few such advocacy and educational activities. I was, for example, I was one of the signers of the longevity dividend petition back in 2006, which was probably one of the first petitions for aging research that had quite a lot of impact in terms of public perception, governmental perception. And also, I keep being involved, at least for 20 years. My first life extension advocacy initiative was a website that we created in Russian, Hebrew, and English in 2002. So I've been in this for over 20 years. But of course, in this congregation, people are involved for much more. So I'm happy to be among like-minded people. So some of the projects that we promote is the so-called Longevity Day or Longevity Month in October that we selected because, you know, the 1st of October is the International Day of Older People. So that's a good excuse to raise the subject of longevity research, improving the health of older people. So that's a campaign they have been organizing for 11 years now, since 2012. That will be the 11th year. For the past couple of years, it's been mostly online meetings, and now that we have less restriction on gathering, we can have live meetings. So I also encourage your community to have some event to join the global campaign of Longevity Month in October, on the 1st of October. Here in Israel and probably in some other place, we'll actually have demonstrations, you know, the actual demonstration with slogans. We'll try to raise this topic to the press. Yeah, that's one of the projects. But of course, also conferences are very important, like the one we organized in 2019 with the NIH and Weizmann Institute. And we continue to organize. We just had another conference 3 months ago in Israel in Ilan University. And this does have some impact, all those advocacy initiatives. So just a couple of more examples from our activism. Back in 2017, the WHO, the World Health Organization, didn't include aging in its work program. So we raised the public outcry, raised the campaign. Hundreds of organizations, hundreds of activists and scientists wrote to the WHO and demanded that aging is included in the work program, and it was actually included. You see the head of the WHO aging division says, WHO listened, and the subject was included with some metrics for improving health of older people. So that's one example that advocacy actually works to affect public health in favor of aging health and aging research. Another example, as I mentioned, is the advocacy work that we've been doing with the International Longevity Alliance, with Gerontology Research Foundation, that actually succeeded to include aging as a code, as a category in the International Classification of Diseases. Also a big achievement of advocacy, and thanks to everybody who was involved. And here in Israel, we also do our advocacy, because obviously most of the funding is at the national level. And so we try our best to include aging as a priority in the Israeli policies. For example, in 2019, we were able to include the topic of health and longevity research, development, and education in the Israel National Masterplan on Aging that was published by Knesset in 2019. And as a result, there are published some calls for research proposals specifically on aging that we also helped to formulate in Israel, also internationally. And for example, there was a call for proposals between UK and Israel, the so-called BIREX Aging, Britain-Israel Research and Academic Exchange on Aging, that I also helped to write. So altogether, I believe we succeeded to get over $20 million for aging research in Israel and a collaborative project with Israel. So yes, advocacy actually works. If you are persistent enough, if you're active enough in reaching out to your decision makers, to your policy makers, you can actually make some dent. So we also encourage it everywhere. And of course, we need as much cooperation as possible. Life extension, anti-aging is simply a task that cannot be achieved by any nation alone. It needs everybody. Some people thought that the United States would be able to to get it for us. Even in Israel, sometimes you go to a decision maker and say, why do we need to invest in Israel? The United States has so much money, they will solve it for us and then sell it to us. I think it's crazy. I think we need everybody, as much international cooperation as possible. The United States, yes, very important, but the entire world, Europe, as well as developing countries, everybody needs to get on board. So altogether, I hope all our efforts, all our initiatives will help bring our goals closer to fruition. So we all, ourselves, our loved ones, our communities will be able to benefit from life extension therapies as soon as possible. And thank you for your consideration, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Ilia. Thank you for your presentation tonight, and we open the floor to everyone and anyone with questions. Yes, Tanya, please do.
So David Croft said, mentioned, I read that wine is frequently part of blue zone diets. Recently, though, I saw another study that any amount of alcohol is bad for you. Any thoughts on that?
Right. So sure. I'll comment on anything. Yeah, that's an example of I would say the tempest in a glass of wine, let's say. So yeah, we have studies on the side of that moderate consumption of alcohol is beneficial. On the other side, we have no alcohol is beneficial. But what we're talking about is I would say at most half a year to a year the increase or decrease of life expectancy this way or another. So I wouldn't really get crazy about it. If you want to have a glass of wine, let's have it, from a come from a Jewish country, from a Jewish culture. So every week we're supposed to have a glass of wine, and also on holidays, and still Jewish people are quite long lived. We have about 82 the years of general life expectancy, 73 years of healthy life expectancy, one of the highest in the world, in the top 5, top 10 nations in the world. And the glass of wine that people have from time to time hopefully did do as much damage. So I wouldn't really get very worked up over things like that. But we also need to understand, that's just my belief, that things like, do we have more exercise? Yes, we should. Do we have, these or other diet that can influence our lifespan, life expectancy, but not dramatically. To increase it dramatically, we really need to invest into life extension research, far-reaching interventions into our genetics, epigenetics, overall regulation of our metabolism. That's the kind of things that can improve our lifespan a lot. But a glass of wine here and there, okay, up for grabs.
Yes, thank you, Ilia. And quite to the point, every person is different. Every individual is different, and everyone, obviously, when we look at our diets and their exercise regime and our nutrition, the supplements and vitamins we take as well, we're all doing different programs. And there's a group out there that would like to meet with anyone or work with anyone that's doing anything specific, so that we can find out the best way to reverse aging, to retard aging, to stop the aging process, and to reverse it, and to be able to find the way to the longest living that we can get, or the best longevity.
Diet. David Croft mentioned this. On the subject of nutrition, he sees the Mediterranean diet mentioned repeatedly. What are your thoughts on that?
I can just repeat my previous answer about the wine. Of course, wine is also part of the Mediterranean diet, but also very important is the community. Mediterranean diet is not just specific ingredients that you eat, it's also the community. It's a part of your exercise routine. It's a part of your working routine. So it all comes together. So I believe of all the things that we have, Mediterranean lifestyle, I would even say diet, Mediterranean lifestyle, including some wine, including some fish and some vegetables, is probably the best thing that we have. But once again, I wouldn't get too intense about it. If you don't follow the Mediterranean diet, you're unscientific or enemy of life extension. There's a lot of variation, as Neil mentioned. There's a lot of individuality. Mediterranean diet may be not the right for everybody. And once again, that can improve our life. I'm not disparaging it. It's very important. Every year of healthy life is very important. But if we really want to increase our lifespan significantly, we really need to invest into massive life extension research and education programs.
Great.
Yeah, so Ilia, hello. First time we meet, huh? Okay, no, we meet almost 3 times a week, I would say. So just we agree about almost everything concerning those questions. Especially what you were saying at the beginning about the fact that life expectancy after the COVID, well, during the COVID was decreasing. It is something strange for me that at least in Europe, especially Belgium, France, where I live, many people were speaking about decreasing life expectancy when it was not the case, because they have statistics about healthy life expectancy. So it's kind of sometimes going up, sometimes going down. And when it was going down, they were speaking about that, but not when it was going up. And now that the life expectancy for the first time since World War II is really decreasing, people don't speak about it. And yeah, I suspect that there is something that we could use for our work, but I don't see exactly what. That's maybe, do you have an idea? Why is this very strange situation? I don't know if it is the same in Israel. And then, yeah, maybe my second question. So we certainly agree that we should try to start clinical trials as soon as possible. There is an initiative called Suzalu, where they plan to try to have an especially good system in Montenegro. So what do you think about that? And as far as you know, which country is at the moment the best country for clinical trials at the moment, in your opinion? Voila, you can choose to answer all questions, or some only one or two if you prefer.
Thanks, Didier. These are pretty big questions, but I'll try. First of all, about the lack of discussion, about the decreasing life expectancy, that's been bothering me a lot. That's indeed very strange that it's happening, but it's not the only strange thing that happened during the COVID time. There are many other strange things that happened, many things that were kept in silence that should be discussed widely. One is which is also connected to general life expectancy, also the questions of all-cause mortality and the effects of various interventions on all-cause mortality. That wasn't discussed nearly as much as it should. But also life expectancy, really it's kept in silence. If I didn't mention it today, probably many members of this group wouldn't even be aware about it, or others. And that's really important. It is for the life extension movement. I wrote this book about the history of the field, and always life extensions argued that at least in the past 150 years, the life expectancy is increasing. That shows our progress of medical science, progress of our healthcare system, and this gives us hope for the future. And now we see that actually it's not the case. There's a virus that actually put this entire progress to halt, and all our medical science wasn't able to stop the decline in life expectancy. That's something that should be discussed broadly. Where did we go wrong, and what's wrong with our medical science, and how? But most importantly, how we can get back. What is it that we should do to get back at least to the level of 2019, to the life expectancy of 2019? What does it mean? I think the neuroscience field proved a bit impotent in this regard. I didn't see any valid recommendations, at least for intervention into the aging process, that would show any significant outcome, on a massive scale. We didn't even have massive clinical trials of anti-aging treatments. Metformin, there was an indication that metformin or rapamycin would decrease deaths from COVID. There are many papers published on it, but not many or no massive clinical trials for this. Maybe some small trials here and there. So that's some of the strange things that happened that we need to discuss and hopefully improve for the future. So that's these are really crucial questions.
If I may add one comment, for me, there is also something almost not possible to understand, that we still have medical progress. We are still progressing for many things, and we even probably progress faster because of the COVID. And this is the first time in the recent history that we have at the same time, or maybe even the first time that we have at the same time technological progress and no progress of life expectancy, and probably also no progress of, let's say, happiness. It's kind of strange, depressing, and and like we both think something that people who are techno-optimists like we are should more discuss. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So early it was, it was easy. We had medical progress, we had the new medical contrivances, and we also had life expectancy. So people connected the two, and they said, these increases in life expectancy and health life expectancy are due to medical contrivances. And now we have tons of medical contrivances, but they don't translate to actual improvement of health span or lifespan. And that sucks. I don't care so much that there are hundreds of thousands or millions of papers published and millions of shiny gadgets, medical gadgets, and tons of beautiful supplements and biomarkers, but this doesn't give anything for our health span. So we really need to get to our senses and try to at least get back to the amount of progress, to the level of progress we had before COVID. So that's hugely important. And your other two questions, if you still want the answers, great. All those initiatives are great in Montenegro, around the world. As I mentioned, I believe this should be in everywhere. I wouldn't single out any specific country. For example, the United States, the regulation probably not optimal for testing, but still the sheer amount of testing is still the greatest in the United States. And also the quality, the standards, the good practices. So the United States still, without any doubt, the leader in the geoscience field, simply by the sheer amount of involvement of practices of research. But as I also try to argue, we need it everywhere. We need it in Africa. We need to leverage the regulatory benefits, the communal benefits of every country. So we don't know where the cure will come out of. It may be United States or Kazakhstan or Montenegro or anywhere. So that's why our advocacy is international. International Longevity Alliance, International Society on Aging and Disease. So we need it everywhere.
Well, okay.
But maybe the last question for you, the best country at the moment, in your opinion, for clinical trials for longevity, the best countries, let's say, do you have
the
an
US.
idea?
US, the United States. United States.
Okay.
As I mentioned, it still has problems, but in the sheer amount of original research that is done, the United States, without any doubt, is the global leader so far.
Yeah, that's because I still think and hope that there are countries, where you have at the same time a good level of health and let's say research, and where the laws are a little bit less complicated to respect. But okay, yeah, maybe it doesn't exist.
We need it everywhere. We need to leverage every country, the strength of every country. That's the solution.
Yes, that's right, Ilia. We need to do all we can where we are with what we have. We all need to work together on this. And some people are thinking, well, we could leave it up to some of the big guys like you, Ilia, and others. But we all really need to get involved where we are in our community and to let other people know that, aging can be reversed. Death can be defeated. These are the big, big jobs for us to do. And I think we're every year, I think we're getting closer and closer to this. So I'm energized by that. Dennis, yes.
More a comment than anything else. Bill has been the spark plug of many things, and most recently he started raising awareness of the fact that there are research studies that are being applied for to the FDA that seem to be stagnating with the FDA for a multitude of reasons. And the reality is, one of the presidential candidates made a comment as, when somebody going to wake up to the fact that Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security are the drivers for the immense size of American government and spending many, many dollars that perhaps could be saved or allocated elsewhere. And the fact that if you have the ability to be able to prevent rather than to treat, and if you have the ability to be able to repurpose existing drugs, which have been done already and continue to be discovered. There's tremendous opportunity to have widespread coverage because they're off patent, which is probably one of the greatest reasons why they aren't being done. But if you were to back it up and say, who's got the pulse of this whole thing, or who has possibly the solution to this whole thing? We just went through this budget crisis in America and made all kinds of crazy concessions, but didn't really solve anything. And we're going to continue to spend money. But if you were able to solve or treat aging as a disease and eliminate many of its causes, then you've shifted dollars that were going into Medicare, we're going into Medicaid, and you have people that can live longer, they can work longer, they can build up their wealth to enjoy it longer. You have monies that don't have to be spent, and it's a political issue, it's a social issue. I do credit Bill with so many things, and this is one awareness that it has to get to the politicians. It's a big deal.
Absolutely,
yes, it is,
absolutely,
Yes.
yeah. And also, our advocacy is specifically political. We do want to get to politicians. Some people, even in our community, they say, no, we don't get involved with politics. It's below us, it's above us. I don't know. But we do want to get involved in politics because they still control a lot of funding. They still control a lot of regulations. So we need them at least not to interfere, not to block this progress. So definitely important to involve politicians, and we've been doing this. In Israel, at least we are able to lobby over $20 million for the field. But what's important to understand, the movement is in two directions. Yes, we need to work at the high level with politicians, with decision makers, but also we need to show the interest from below. Because politicians, if they don't see interest from below, they simply don't bother. They simply don't care. They care about things that will help them get elected, that they'll actually show some interest in the press and in the media. So we do need to work from below, and even practically, even concerning the examples you mentioned, there are already precedents, there are already frameworks in the regulatory system in the US that would allow this kind of intervention. For example, in 2015, the FDA approved a TAME study, the targeting of aging with metformin, that basically suggested that we can intervene into aging and measure it by postponing multiple age-related diseases. So if we don't know how to measure aging per se, we can use it as a proxy, to prevent multiple age-related diseases. And 8 years passed, this study didn't start on a massive scale. So it's not just about FDA, not just about the regulators and decision makers, it's also about the actual initiative from the scientists. As I mentioned earlier, aging is already a target in the ICD, International Classification of Diseases. Basically, you can already go to regulators and ask, to intervene into aging, or to reimburse her and say, here, it's in its ICD, it's called this and this. Let's try to reimburse, but it's not done because there's not enough movement from below. We shouldn't expect that, if there's some regulation, some statute written somewhere, it's already going to practice. We still need to push for it as grassroots, as a movement, as an advocacy.
Thank you, Ilia, on that. And again, last call for questions. Well, Ilia, thank you for this evening, and thank you for your presentation. Everyone may share this recording of this event with all of the people that you love and care about. And I'd like to invite you next month for another presentation here at Perpetual Life. Next month, we'll be having Gennady Stolyarov, and he'll be coming in on the 4th Thursday of July. If you'd like to receive our monthly newsletters, or you're curious about cryonics, please just send me an email request and we will keep you posted on all that is happening at the church. and age reversal updates and health breakthroughs around the world. Before we close out, we have our creed. Join me in our recitation of the creed. We believe that all of life is sacred and that we have been given this one life to make unlimited. We believe in our Creator's divine plan for all of humanity to have infinite lifespans in perfect health and eternal joy, rendering death to be optional. By following our gospel, we achieve eternal life, creating a heaven here on earth. We follow Nikolai Fedorov, who taught that the transcendence of the Creator will only be solved when humanity, in our unified efforts, become an instrument of universal resuscitation, when the divine word becomes our divine action. And we follow Arthur C. Clarke, who said the only way to discover the limits of the possible is to go beyond them into the impossible. And so we enter each day energized in spirit and empowered by the words of our prophets to live in joy, serving our Creator and all of mankind forever and ever. We will not be in person next month, we will be live in Zoom only. Ilia, thank you again for a wonderful presentation tonight.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. And do believe through meetings like this, we can really advance our cause everywhere. You know, every drop of water helps to bring this closer.
Yes, yes. And I'd like to invite you to stay with us in our social Zoom. That's basically our after party so far.
Okay.
Thank you again, Ilia. And
Thank you.
we are closing out from Israel and from South Florida officially. Thank you for joining us tonight.